was uit de taal van Total en lijst die de taal van al school dat vond ik vooral ja, ik denk wel dat ik heel talig ben, maar dat komt meer. Het komt meer, denk ik, als in als kind werd heel veel voorgelezen uit boeken en zo. Mijn ouders hebben niet zo vaak afbesteden dat er in zit. Dat soort dingen. Dus ze hebben me onbewust al best wel talen opgevoed daarin. En ik had ook van natuurlijk meer aandacht voor taal, ook al sprak ik, ook al was ik niet twee dagen of zo, maar het leren van nieuwe talen gaat voor mij heel makkelijk. Ik vind het heel interessant. Dus dat helpt.
When I first arrived, I thought I spoke French. Well, I was in a kind of there I had taken a French phonetics course at university, and I can remember, and I thought I had a great accent, because I was working with a woman who was an actress, a French actress, who was studying at NYU, and she to be able to, live, she gave French conversation lessons and had French workshops and things. And so, basically she was flattering me. And, and she may have been sincere in her flattery, that she felt I was, making progress, whatever. But I can remember when the phonetics was actually very, it was actually very difficult for me to grasp. There's a lot of stuff that were like these graphs about pitch, and like in a given sentence or something, and I didn't grasp that, sort of like almost like the musicality of it. I had something else that was not, it was not French. And I remember her saying, but you don't have the French intonation. Maybe she didn't use the word accent, but it was definitely the intonation that I literally was not able to grasp. And I realized that there were all sorts of subtleties that I was not hearing. I wasn't hearing, and that could have been inspiring to kind of go forward on, except that, I kind of turned away from that. So I came here having had those kinds of conversations with people that are probably embarrassing to native speakers, when someone is, making the effort and they're being indulgent, And I came across on a boat, and I could understand. That was the thing. I remember on the boat there was you get assigned to a table. I came across on the front, so we assigned to a table, and there was a Canadian photographer, a man, and a young woman, some sort, and they were English speaking. And then there was a couple, a mother and a daughter, who maybe been on a post. Maybe the daughter had been in some sort of civil service or a diplomatic post. It was so cute, though, that's because it was like at dinner they spoke with one another to each other. But it was like, maman, tu sais, il dit que maintenant les voitures se garent sur les trottoirs à Paris. It was like this appalling, the French that they were going to have, the France that they were going to have to re-enter, and there had been such terrible change, and they were probably right. But of course I was like, in my brain just started like, it just felt like it was, but so I understood, I thought, confidence had like shattered. I couldn't understand what people were saying. You know, I was living with Carol's mother, and I understood what she said to me, because she was making the effort. Because Carol was the teacher, person who took my money and got me a friend. Anyway, but then I would go down to this wonderful Market Street in the night, you know, where I lived, and I literally was like totally locked. I was like I became catatonic. And so there were two activities. One was I would go to the market and then I would order into, because I thought I could say into correctly. So I ordered into, and then I would go to the post office. And I could get dime. Boy, they had beautiful dime in the States. So I was more and more withdrawn, and in fact, you know, really paralyzed by this shock of not speaking, not understanding, and not speaking, and not. I had no boldness. I was kind of undone. I was 28 years old, but I was, you know, it's as if I were 14 or something.
Oui, totalement. Et après, je pense que c'est plus le latin, dans le sud de la France, qui a des influences latines. Je pense que plus on va dans le nord de la France, plus ces gestes changeront et peut-être s'approprieront, mais je ne suis pas certain. Après, oui, la chaleur de communication, c'est du cas par cas, parce que c'est pas tout le monde ça, c'est des sortes de caractère. Donc, c'est ce que la langue offre. Avec la culture, c'est qu'avec les clients, il y a des Français ici, on a en particulier le Sud aussi. On a une autre manière de communiquer ensemble qu'avec les pays du Nord, qui est un pays, même si on a des affinités différentes. Et ça, ouais, c'est vraiment des influences culturelles locales. Ouais. Et après, c'est une histoire de texture. Plus une langue est texturée, plus on va avoir des gestes. Qui vont pouvoir être logiques. Après, cela, c'est comme des surnoms. Parfois, il faut faire partie du groupe pour comprendre ce que ça veut dire. Ouais, tous les gestes ne peuvent pas être compris par tout le monde, même si on vient du même milieu, du même endroit, qu'on a l'habitude d'utiliser des gestes. Dans une conversation, je ne pense pas qu'on comprendre si on n'a pas tous les éléments nécessaires. Donc, ouais, ça, c'est le cas par cas aussi. Mais ouais, c'est le cas dans la question.
Ja, ik zou wel graag, ik hou wel heel erg van taal. Ik hou ook heel erg van de Nederlandse taal. Want ik vaak nog gedaan wordt over de Nederlandse taal, terwijl ik vind dat het echt niet is. Maar ik heb heel kort Spaans geleerd. Maar goed, toen was ik ook maar nergens van het is heel mooi dat het gewoon weer zo anders is. Dus ik zou best wel graag op zo'n Zuid-Europese taal, dus Spaans. En ik zou ook wel graag een Scandinavische taal willen leren. Dat is weer ja, ik zou ook, ja. Maar ik voel niet zo erg van dat we. Maar ik heb wel. Misschien is het ook. Ik voel ook vaak dat ik het Engels ga doen. Ik heb gewoon. Ja, ik denk dat daar gewoon nog echt is. Er zit ook gewoon een soort faalangst in de en ik kan ook nog Spaans gaan leren. Kijk, dan kan jij zeggen, ik kan Engels, dan kan ik zeggen, ik kan Spaans. Dat voelt wel al dan in de Engels dat ik goed leer. Dus dat zit daar ook in. Idioom is natuurlijk een onderwerp. De grap, ik snap ook nooit wat wie ook precies was, maar ik begrijp het nu wel. Bepaalde manieren van dingen zeggen en bepaalde manieren van dingen vragen. Dat wist ik zelf dus nog heel erg in het Engels. Maar ik zie dus ook bij mensen die Nederlands leren dat het gewoon van zeggen dingen die gewoon taal gebruiken. En ik ben dan met Joy aan het schrijven en op een gegeven moment schreef Joy me terug dat ze iets nieuws geleerd had, van een manier waarop we dingen vragen aan elkaar. En ik denk, ja, dat is natuurlijk ook super relevant om te weten. Dus je kunt eerst beginnen met een taal leren, maar je weet heel gauw alsof je de taal leert als je dit soort finesses niet kent. Ja. Dus ook de vraag was, how are you doing? Dat je die eigenlijk niet moet beantwoorden. Dat dus inhoudelijk in taal dat soort dingen ook nog zitten. Ik vind het heel interessant om te ontdekken of zo. Ook in zo'n briefwisseling. Dus,
maar hoe heb ik bijgehouden? Het is gewoon een eerste taal. Het is gewoon, het blijft taal die ik als ik het hoor, ook in allerlei dialecten, ik versta het gewoon 100%. Ja, het is gewoon mijn vadertaal in ieder geval. En dat gaat nooit weg. Dat zal nooit, ik zal het nooit niet meer kunnen begrijpen. Zeg maar. Dus ik versta het echt als mijn taal. En als ik het spreek, nu heb ik het Nederlands accent. Maar ik denk dat als ik daar zeg maar, een maand of zo ben, dat het dan weg is. Praktisch niet meer belangrijk is. Dat ik dan het accent neem, het dialect, accent van het dialect daar.
So in synapses, I'm more emotionally open and connected and softer. And I can juggle easier between humor, meaning, and analysis, they all become kind of one. So I can pull up a joke while being aware of what I'm actually trying to say. In English, I'm more lively, more superficial. Like I'm either inquiring something emotional or I'm more writing a joke. And I don't really have emotional implications. But I'm aware of it.
ja, ik vind het dus heel dubbel. Ik vind het ergens jammer dat talen zo gescheiden zijn. Omdat ik wel iets minder kan hebben tot andere talen zijn inderdaad veel scheiden.
So Jan is making an installation of hand gloves in the other room. And I had some at home, so I brought them with me today so that she can use them. Because I'm not going to use them anyways, and thought they might be of use for her. So I'm going to leave them in the other room.
Oui, mais ça peut être aussi une influence locale, une question sociale, tout ça. Quand on voit la langue française, je pense que le français qu'on parle entre les jeunes, avec de l'argot dedans, des contractions, de popularisation du langage et des instances sérieuses, oui, la position sociale a vraiment une influence sur la manière dont on va parler. Et après, ça ne veut pas dire qu'on est obligé et qu'on ne peut pas en faire prendre de mayonnaise ou quelque chose. Ça, c'est vrai. On va prendre ce qui nous plaît à nous et de communiquer dans nos espaces de confort. En revanche, dès qu'on passe dans ce confort-là, on va s'oublier à l'école, on s'oublie qu'on va respecter. Et ça va influencer nos relations, la manière, la propreté du langage, la poësie qu'on doit émettre, et tout ça.
Dat is ook waarom ik het heel leuk zou vinden om, ik heb het wel vaker iemand zegt, als jij iets wil, kunstenaar persoon, mij dan meehelpt om jouw project zo onder woorden te brengen dat zij het ook begrijpen. En ik denk dat in die zin ik mezelf als een soort vertaler vind. Of ik ook nog tussenin. Ja.
Maar ik heb in het Nederlands niet het gevoel alsof we heel veel woorden opnemen in onze taal. Maar meer alsof we andere woorden gebruiken uit andere talen. En het standaard Nederlands zelf niet heel veel uitbreiden, maar meer een soort van wegdrukken. En dat voelt anders dan woorden opnemen in je taal en aanpassen aan je taal. Want dan ben je meer een soort van het integreren. In plaats van dat je een soort mengelvorm spreekt van verschillende gescheiden talen.
Ja, nou eigenlijk als je zo naar kijkt, dan is dat natuurlijk wel zo. Het is ook gewoon een manier van gaten. Ja. Nee, zeker. En ik vind het alsof ik altijd wel tegen ben of zo. Maar zo bedoel ik dat niet. Nou ja, misschien wel nu het gauw is. Maar kijk, als je in een wereld begeeft waarin er wat dialect gesproken wordt, kijk, als ik in Drenthe begeef aan Drents, dan is dat prima. Maar als ik in Brabant in het Drents ga proberen uit te leggen, terwijl ik ook gewoon Nederlands kan, of misschien ook wel Brabants, dan vind ik dat zonde, want dan gaat een heel deel van wat je wil vertellen verloren. En dat is waar ik me vaak aan stoor bij het dialect van de misschien ingewikkelde woorden, zeg maar. Dat is voor heel veel mensen interessant. Er zijn ook heel veel mensen die gewoon op een gegeven moment stoppen met dit te lezen. Dat één zin bestaat uit 10 ingewikkelde woorden. Maar je dan ongeveer weet wat het betekent. Ja, gewoon zoals je hebt gelezen, wel in het leven. Dat is eigenlijk wat er staat. Maar ja, ik vind het wel interessant om te kijken naar een soort van ogen. Het is ook een soort van goede letters. Zo even
Ja, laat het ook wel uit toch nog ja, het zo jammer is dat dat de taal zo'n politieke, zo'n slechte reputatie heeft. Dat een taal is die die misschien niet zo mooi klinkt, als wat mooi gevonden wordt in het Frans of in het Italiaans. Maar het is een hele mooie taal om die uit te kunnen doen. Er zijn heel veel bepaalde woorden dat echt. Als een chocola of iets moet dan denk ik dat is geweldig. Dit woord is zo geweldig. Ik heb ook wel Engelse woorden waar als je dan naar vraagt, denk ik, geweldig. Het is echt over een bepaalde uitdrukking of een spreekwoord, wat dan ook. En dan soms bij talen is dan hetzelfde genot als bij eten. Dit is zo lekker, dit.
Yeah, I think it's in between those two. Because partly, I think to say to give an example, what is this in between? Like if I would be living in a place with native speakers, I think apart from the amazing, exciting, key pronunciation that they would have developed, I think I would get at least part of where the expressions came from, socially, culturally, and what meaning do they carry like deeply. Because I learned English English-speaking culture via an Americanized kind of Hollywood kind of flat way, then it's more, I'm more drawn to just talk something because, say something because it's cool, than because I constructed something with it, and because it comes from me.
C'est comme beaucoup de choses, c'est l'usage. C'est nous qui nous en servons, ça nous appartient. Récemment, je voyais des choses sur les censures. Et justement, on a vu que la censure ne marche pas. Tout simplement, ça, on va pas en revenir. Elle ne fonctionne pas. Et que justement, il y a eu des époques où la vulgarisation, la popularisation, comment on dit le mot vulgaire en français, il y a de vulgarisme, qui veut dire du peuple, pour la faire en fait. C'est donc assez une notion péjorative, mais c'est une histoire de dominance entre riches et pauvres. Celle-là, on va la retrouver dans le langage, mais l'histoire du monde, effectivement, les gens riches perdent toujours parce qu'ils sont trop petits. Il n'y a pas ce que. C'est fait pour être utilisé en contraire. C'est ceux qui l'utilisent qui décident. Ils ne décident pas eux-mêmes, mais plus ce sera utilisé, et plus ça ira. Et c'est pour ça, des fois, qu'il y a des mots, ça fait 10 ans, vraiment national, mais un microcosme, puis sans être en 10 ans, et pour eux, ce sera des mots. Ça fait 10 ans, c'est pas nouveau. Mais il y a des régions, ça mettra 10 ans à devenir un truc qui sera fait plus. Ça, c'est une variation possible.
Nowadays, we know the words. If I'm not in the dollar, the only thing I know is what it's benefits. And I generally,
I haven't spoken much French in the last 5 years. And so, I mean, that's a kind of a loss. I'm more self-conscious about my French. So more self-conscious about it. In the years of speaking, both languages every day, non-stop, there would be things that sort of one word, I have to use a French word in my English speaking, or I have to take an English word into my French. You sense that there was something that was missing in each language that, what I find, unfortunately, as I've tried in my sort of leisure to improve at least my written French, very limited, this we're talking about on the level of sending textos in full sentences. I realized that there's, in French, I'm much more aware of whole parts of the language being really absorbed as kind of cliches, langue de bois, being much more prevalent in a kind of formalistic way. It's much more prevalent, it seems to me. But I think that this is a very superficial observation, because I think this is exactly how language gets absorbed, intrinsically. And so that I find myself speaking in these, in a way that is very, as they would say in French, emprunté. I've only made one friend out here, and that's a deal, another of this little giant. And when I write to her, it feels like I'm trying to, my language is impoverished. approach. You know, I feel like I'm doing cliche after cliche after cliche. And I know that that's not, I mean, you know, French is such a wonderful, you know, I remember hearing people speak French when I first came here, and some of them, they're mostly men, they would really annoy me, because I think they're like piano virtuosos, or virtuosi, you know, and they're just like, when they just say, you know, whatever they were trying to say, they could just say like that, but you just, you know, it was explicit, but it was showing off. You know, it was.
Oui et non, parce que c'est pas ma nature d'être vraiment hollandais, et même je ne me sens pas forcément. Par contre, ce que j'aime bien faire, donc, ce que je suis familial avec les gens qui sont capables de comprendre, je francise des mots hollandais. Ça quasiment dans ce moment-là, moi-même, évidemment, dans la leçon, parce que sur elle, elle pourrait comprendre très vite. Mais oui, ça c'est le jour de soin. Parce qu'il y a aussi quand même, la langue anglaise a moins de finesse, moins de poésie, surtout dans un domaine culturel. Pour autant, c'est quand même très intéressant à transposer dans le sens. Le langage français, il y a quand même des mots intéressants à prendre, même si, moi personnellement, je dirais que la langue néerlandaise se développe un petit peu plus pour pouvoir la détailler, la complexifier dans son expression. Mais c'est mon appel à moi.
Ja, maar ik denk ook dat dat een van de redenen is dat het Nederlands is ook gewoon aan het veranderen, denk ik. Ik weet het wel, maar heel veel mensen vinden het jammer. Dat het gewoon alles wordt globaal. Alle talen vermengen zich met Engels en andere voertalen. En daardoor wordt elke taal minder uniek en minder anders. En dat vind ik jammer.
Ja, de briefwisseling is dus niet dat ik Engels kan leren, maar dat een ander Nederlands te leren. En die we ons hebben aangepakt is eigenlijk dat ik heb de eerste brief geschreven en ik heb hem zo kort mogelijk zinnen, dat er niet weer allemaal commas en ands in zitten. Dus bij duidelijke zinnen een soort van vergelijkbare structuur, maar wel over iets wat interessant is en wat mij interesseert. Dus niet dat ik dan denk, ik schrijf over het weer, want het is best om iets te leren. Dus laten we dan ook een inhoud hebben. En zij sturen me dan dus een brief terug als reactie. En we hebben een soort tussen de regels, dus we schrijven op het lijstpapier, er staat elke keer een regel open, zodat ook als er een correctie is, kan ik het doen. En met een nieuwe brief stuur ik dan weer mee terug, wat mijn correcties zijn. En ook een stukje feedback op van, nou, de brief is goed geschreven, ik kon het lezen, ik zie nu naar een paar dingen. En het voordeel daarvan is ook dat je meteen kan zien, is het taalkundig, is het puur een gebrek aan vocabulaire, is het een zinsopvolgorde, zit het meer op werkwoordspelling, dus dan kun je veel duidelijker feedback geven. En dat vind ik echt ook heel leuk aan, dus dat didactisch gezien, dat heel sterk werken. Ik weet niet of het voor anderen ook zo werkt. Wat ik ook heel leuk vond was dat
ja, nee, op school is het eindexamen of zo. Dat vond ik eigenlijk niet. Ik deed mijn best om niet de beste in de klas te zijn. Dat liep ik aan een ander meisje over. Dat was Oostenrijks. Of is het nog gewoon weer voor haar. Maar die was echt meer zo'n meer precieze en ik was niet. Ik deed het allemaal op gehoor, ik deed niet op regelgeving. Dat is nog steeds het geval met vervoegingen en zo. Maak ik fouten omdat ik het op gehoor doe en dat is niet precies genoeg. Het is ook meer gevoelsmatig of zo, dat is niet helemaal. Maar ik denk dat als ik met werk nu, als ik het zou moeten doen voor werk, 100% Duits, gewoon een beetje met Duitse klant of zo, zou moeten communiceren. dat ik dan wel weer eventjes naar de grammatica te kijken, de regels, om steeds dezelfde fouten te maken. Dus ik ben nu dan meer preciezer geworden en dan meer geobsedeerd bij van om het goed te doen, zeg maar. Wat perfectionistischer geworden dan ik als puber was.
Ja, nee, maar ik bedoel, ik gebruik gewoon af en toe, als het zo uitkomt, in het Nederlands, als je een Engels woord, of zo. Ja, omdat het voor mij gewoon, dat behoort tot mijn vocabulaire. En dat woord is in die context dan klinkt dat nog mooier of geeft nog beter neer wat je wil zeggen. Zoiets. Kijk, en als je die talen allemaal spreekt, ik bedoel, als iemand bij een gesprek gaat en die gaat tussen woorden gaan, ja, snap ik niks van. Snap ik niet. Hè? Maar Frans wel. Dus, ja, en dat is gewoon, waarom doe je dat dan? Ja, gewoon omdat het soms, de ene taal nog beter woord heeft voor een ander voor iets dan een ander. Dus.
It would be difficult because I don't know myself as a non-motivated person. I do resonate with this sense of being a chameleon. And I was in my early years also with a lot of different groups of people, a lot of different group cultures, and then rather than strongly manifesting my own, then I would rather first observe, learn, and then find my way into this. And I rather think this is because of my character in family, in my life. I've had, for example, I compare sometimes myself with other Greeks that came to our days. And many Greek people have more of a desire to meet up with other Greek people. And normalize their language for themselves. Kind of bring Greek here. May have been behavior in the actual language, so Greek is heard, but it's not like nobody really. Very few people have actually heard Greek and would say, "Oh yeah, I have an idea what Greek sounds like." When you say Greek sounds like, but it's not Greek sound. This is something to say. So, in comparison to these people, I'm very different. There was also, when I was younger, there was some, as you say, it's like prioritizing, or like I felt it was, in a way I was putting English speaking culture higher than Greek culture. That has an impact also now here that the Greek elements of language, culture, whatever, I'm rather keeping it for myself, internally expressing it in the way that I'm doing it, rather than when I put on a Greek song, for example.
En het is de taal waar die het meest gesproken wordt, blijkbaar. Ik weet niet hoeveel, maar het is ook de taal waar de meeste sprekers ervan niet native zijn. Het is maar een heel klein gedeelte, een heel klein percentage is van Engels sprekenden zijn native. Alle anderen is het second language. Dus eigenlijk zijn er degenen die second language zijn, bepalen hoe de taal zich gaat ontwikkelen.
Andere mensen zijn veel gemakkelijker met fouten maken, maar omdat ik het zo. Ik heb er echt best moeite mee om fouten te maken. Omdat ik het gewoon goed wil doen. Ja, daar hou je dus je eigen leerproces ook niet tegen.
Ik merkte dat ik me meer verbonden voelde met de Nederlandse taal en cultuur toen ik in Amerika was. Omdat je automatisch heimwee krijgt aan iets bekends. Het maakt niet zoveel uit hoe verbonden je normaal met je taal en cultuur voelt. Als je voor langere tijd in een vreemd land zit, zal je altijd denk ik heimwee krijgen naar wat je kent. Wat voor jou bekend is, wat dat anders is. Mijn vrienden heb ik een playlist gemaakt met Nederlandse muziek, waar ik ervoor nooit naar huis ben. En ik ben weer zeg maar Nederlands tekst aan het opzoeken. Ik zoek Nederlanders naar om Nederlands mee te kunnen praten. Wel om Nederlands mee te praten. Ik wil weer Nederlandse boeken lezen en zo. Maar zodra ik in Nederland was het een soort van, ja, was Nederland een voertaal en voelde ik minder noodzaak. Ik denk dat als ik in het buitenland ben, dat ik dat eigenlijk manieren zoek om mijn Nederlands te kunnen houden. En misschien een connectie met mijn cultuur niet kwijtraken en een basistaal. Maar in Nederland zelf ben ik daar natuurlijk
Terwijl, kijk, het kan best wel, als je er helemaal in komt, kan echt wel wennen. De woordenschat is heel minimaal. Dus specifiek minimaal, dat vind ik ook wel moeilijk, maar in de Nederland is het echt prima wel.
I did notice what's interesting about this is that when I started paying attention to that, I started seeing that different. So I could perceive and interact with different when I was able to not understand fully, but like pay attention, like respect kind of the fact that basically they're all black. That was like the space part, the language was just like the favorite or some form of like or more than the culture.
En ik denk dat ik in Nederlands vrij vaardig ben. En dat ik me wel goed uit kan drukken in Nederlands. Hoewel ik ook best wel vaak het gevoel heb dat ik ik vind altijd een soort onderscheid zit tussen gewoon van Nederlands en met mensen praten en ook in je gevoel uit kunnen drukken. En ook een soort laag daarboven. En ik vind het moeilijk in Nederlands. En ik merk het heel erg als ik ga schrijven. Dan heb ik best allemaal zo'n woorden gebruiken waar ik denk, nou, dat heb ik gedaan. En ik ken iets van jou, maar als ik gewoon iemand praat, gebruik ik die vaak niet. Dat vind ik wel een beetje het minder gebruiksvriendelijke Nederlands. Sommige mensen houden er denk ik van scholen of wat dan ook. En ik vind dat best wel moeilijk. Dus ik denk dat het wel vaardig is.
Est-ce que compliqué aussi, vous avez parlé de l'anglais pas assez bien, pas assez finesse, pas assez vocabulaire, on va peut-être pas plus en français, dans la gestion de ça, d'accord. C'est difficile parce que j'étais plus jeune, mais j'ai un peu ressenti ça ici avec ma part, quand je me suis politique, on n'avait pas trouvé les mots et qu'on se fatiguait à se pas passer une équation confrontée, où on devait expliquer, trouver tout ça à l'autre, et qu'on n'avait pas à s'imaginer. Donc, on se sent un peu dans une bulle. Et c'était plus fort avant, effectivement, parce que autant j'avais du mal à comprendre, autant j'avais du mal à expliquer. Et donc là, le monde s'en capte. Tout se raconte aussi. Et dans ce cas-là, on va se réfugier dans les choses qu'on comprend, peut-être une nouvelle artistique ou des artistes différents, interactifs.
Het komt meer, denk ik, als en als kind werd heel veel voorgelezen uit boeken en zo. Mijn ouders hebben niet zo vaak aan besteed dat er maar inzicht en dat soort dingen. Dus ze hebben me onbewust al best wel talen opgevoed daarin. En ik had ook van nature meer aanleg voor taal, ook al sprak ik, ook al was ik niet twee talen of zo, maar het leren van nieuwe talen gaat voor mij heel makkelijk. Ik vind het ook heel interessant. Dus dat helpt.
When I first arrived, I thought I spoke French. I was in a kind of there I taken a French phonetics course at the university. And I can remember, and I thought I had a great accent. Because I was working with a woman who was an actress, a French actress, who was studying at NYU. And she to be able to, live, she gave French conversation lessons and had French workshops and things. And so, basically she was flattering me. And and she may have been sincere in the flattery, that she felt I was, making progress, whatever. But I can remember when the phonetics was actually very, it's actually very difficult for me to grasp.
bit clever, I think. Yeah. Maybe something else. People, but it doesn't help me. So, for instance, if I want to lie on the ground for a week, then you should just let me lie on the ground and not say, okay, are you aware of the fact that this next exhibition is going to be happening in February? Maybe you should start 2 weeks. I'm feeling active right now. Let's push further. Before she retired, and I said, both of you is an initiative.
Oh my God.
Because you started, that's just started right now, so then it's out of the, out of. Not sure if you want to just read that, talk about it on. Yes. Yeah, on virus. So it's very uncertain. Let's say, of course, you want to see space that makes sense. And I'm sure you can, because you are there. So,
Oh my God. Oh my God. hou je maar weer wel. Nee joh. Die moet wel. So, hi again. Since it's probably the last hour that there is sunlight, I decided to go to the sanctuary, because that's the place where one of the scores is about. Anna left a score for us that we should end our day at the sanctuary. I'm just going to wait until this finishes. Okay. So when Anna was here, she left a score for us that we should end our day at the sanctuary. So that's why I'm here right now. It's a place that is not facing the street side, but it's facing the garden. I'll show you quickly around so you have a good overview of it. I'll just put the camera maybe here. So what you can see, it's a place where we can retreat and paint, draw, collages, whatever, without anybody else from the street side to see. And also Maxime left a score that we should read out of a book every day for about 20 minutes. So I decided to combine these two scores by reading out in the sanctuary. I think I will turn the laptop so you will see me completely. Yeah, so I think it's a bit better because the light is coming from the front, so it's not one shadow covering half of my head, or at least not as much. So that's why I decided to read from a book that Maxime has left for about 20 minutes. It's a book that I don't know. I was looking through it and I decided to pick this book for today. It's called GAP, or GAP. And it's an interview. It's written by Alice Bézard. I also don't know this writer. And I'm just going to read out from this book until the 20 minutes are over. If I look into this book, it's written first in French, then you have the Dutch translation of what is written in French, and then afterwards you also have the English translation. Since I think most of the people that are watching this speak English, whereas not many people might speak Dutch or French, I think it's best to read this in English. So I don't speak French, or at least I've had it in high school for 6 years, but my French is still not very good. So I speak both Dutch and English, but I think it's best to go for English this time. So yeah, let's go and see if I can make the 20 minutes, see if I can complete the 20 minutes. Introduction. When an artist enters into a museum, he or she normally does so without any comment. Solely the work bears witness with the silent eloquence of a visiting card of a commemorative tablet. Not Gap. She chooses to enter in the flesh, and above all, with wide open eyes, determined to share with us in everything she comes across. All is of interest to her. The oeuvres of old and modern masters, the great white walls and the polished floors, and the onlookers. Above all, the onlookers. She perceives their observations and adds her complicit, compassionate, mocking, or frankly sarcastic comments. This reminds me a bit, when I'm reading this, of Andrea Fraser's institutional critique, where she talks about the critical museum visitor, in which she describes the critical museum visitor as the visitor that looks at the whole complexity of the museum. So also its architecture, its visitors, and everything that's part of the context of the museum. And she comments on that. So that was what I was thinking of when I'm reading Gap right now. So if you don't know about this, look up The Critical Museum Visitor. I believe it's an essay written by Andrea Fraser. So you know what I'm talking about when I'm making this reference. However, Gap doesn't restrict herself. So first, Gap is a woman, okay. To the closed space of museums. On the contrary, as a globetrotter, she fully belongs to the global village. During her peregrinations from Kinshasa to The Hague, from Montreal to Kuala Lumpur, a fetish object never leaves her, the claustra, that small geometrical element used in architecture for constructing fretted walls. This perhaps pleases Gap immensely because of its mischievous and deceitful character. For those who rely on its name, should a claustra, not cloister, close separate? No, it's an opening, a filter, a passage to the space highlighted by its very frame and structure. In other words, the claustra supports and nearly crystallizes the glance. It is present everywhere, either floating in the air as a UFO, or standing in an urban setting, or as a stowaway slinking behind Gap into museum galleries. Gap defines in her interview with Alice Bézard what is a claustra and what is not. The visitor of Maison Descartes will discover this in November and December, venturing by chance to be captured by Gap's gaze, if she fancies to do so. And this is written by Philip Noble in Amsterdam on the 22nd of September, 1997. Then we come to a note. In her studio located at the Côte de Neige, Gap and Alice Bézard chat by the crackling fire. It is November 11th, 1994, a Friday morning, the day after the opening of Gap's exhibition. Au-delà du musée, claustre, beyond the museum, claustra. An exhibition held at the Maison de la Culture Côte de Neige in Montreal. At the same time takes place another exhibition of Gap's work, Claustra Museum Claustra at the Montreal Galerie Observatoire 4. And then we have some short pieces of text next to it on the next page. In painting, now that everything has been undone at last, each can do what he has to. The set purpose of painting, to produce without justification, to paint without strain, without purpose, set or not. The claustra shows the idea of the separation, but humor is its possible passage. And then we start with an interview with Alice Bézard, that Alice Bézard is having with Gap or GAP. Gap, I have made a number of questions concerning your work. The first one, the inevitable one, I am sure. What is, for you, the meaning of a claustra? Claustra is a real architectural element. It derives from a Latin term. Nowadays, it is a mass-produced concrete element, though sometimes it is still handmade from clay, measuring by and large 30 to 30 centimeters and 8 to 15 centimeters thick. It can be smaller or larger, of course. It is a threaded work of various geometrical shapes. Wind can blow through it, as well as glances cast. It does divide. A claustra forms a real separation, but with open spaces. I was struck by several words of different nature, perhaps. The architectural feature brings you, I'm sure, to think of the substance from which we all come. The geometric aspect of a claustra also brings to mind an analogy with the word ordinance, doesn't it? Has this architectural characteristic an important universal element in it for you or not? Indeed, my work highlights these different concerns. The claustra may embody the minimal architectural component and the museum the maximal. In the claustra itself, a grain of sand exists as a minimal component, for instance, which I combine into my material. Then the claustra becomes maximal. I like to elaborate on the geometrical aspect. I'm a painter. I paint with oil, largely on linen. I demarcate the surface on which I'm working. Mankind gives itself architecture as a limited way of living, moving around. Its freedom is inserted in, expressed by, and lived between these self-created boundaries. Absolute freedom is everything, and it is nothing. The limitation is there. Not in a narrow sense, but as a measure one gives oneself. This kind of relates also to what we're doing in this exhibition, and that's why I decided to pick a passage from this book today. So the limitation is there, not in a narrow sense, but as a measure one gives oneself. This is the liberty mankind is living, all the time, something moving, mobile. Not as a definition once and for all fixed, closed, limited, but in a form permanently opening up and expanding. When I take a canvas on which I put, for instance, a claustra, it is the freedom which I bestow on myself at a given moment. And then the question comes again. When in your career did you think of a claustra for the first time? That began rather consciously and systematically in the 80s when I lived in Kinshasa, in Zaire. My garden was enclosed by a wall or claustra, a square claustra with a square in the middle. They had been filled up with concrete so that the wall, which surely has been fretted, became a solid separation between two villas. All the claustra in the neighborhood were broken down, cracked. Here and there, small pieces of claustra salvaged, set in equilibrium on top of a wall. I worked with this team, first on paper, sheets of arches. It's a name of a place, arche. But it's a name, so it's first on paper, sheets of arches. I drew in black lead pencil one claustra after another on separate sheets. I have a whole series of claustra. Out of context, the images become quite abstract. From these drawings, I made one large painting, among others, representing a completely decayed claustra wall. For me, that depicted and still depicts Zaire. You mentioned Zaire. Do you likewise approach other countries ethologically through the claustra? Do you work differently, say, in Canada, in France, in Amsterdam? I react to the place where I evolve, thus it influences me. We cannot be indifferent to our environment. I work on several levels besides this first one, though. Ideas guide my painting. Things have to be transmitted to those who look at paintings, but there also exists an essence, the essence in itself of what may be the substance, the material and the working of the material. Referring to a grain of sand, for instance, I try to work directly on consciousness. More and more, we should strive for greater consciousness. We are human beings. We form the human race. We don't belong to the animal race. That's interesting because that probably might relate or might be interesting to what Anna is actually doing, because Anna researches the relationship between human animals, as she calls them, and non-human animals. And here you can see a clear separation in language of the of Gap, as she depicts animals and humans as different. So what she says is, we are human beings, we form the human race, we don't belong to the animal race, even though we have some beastly sides. I'm curious to see what Anna thinks of this thought of Gap. We live in a world of advancement. There was the caveman, but at all times, even with ups and downs, our direction is an evolutionary case. Or is an evolutionary one, notwithstanding all the ugliness everywhere. I think of the lecture you gave yesterday on Eastern Europe. Enough reasons to remain silent with all that is happening throughout the world. We make this reality possible. We reap as we sow. Very often we sow some bloody bad seeds to come to these results. But this negative side, and all negative sides, possesses a positive aspect. It's funny because positive and negative are spelled in French spelling, positif and negative. I believe it's French, so it's, correct me if I'm wrong, it's spelled, negative is spelled Negatyf, and positive is spelled Positif. I have to look it up, but I'm assuming this is the French spelling of these words, whereas this has been translated into English. It's interesting to see that they have kept this French writing, but I'm not sure if this French. I have to check it for myself after I'm done reading. Okay, I will read it again. We reap as we sow. Very often we sow some bloody bad seeds to come to these results. But this negative side, and all negative sides, possesses a positive aspect. Things turn around, are being transformed. Moreover, all the works, the paintings, the drawings, etchings around Mon Artiste et Yogi exist because I wanted to turn the active. I wanted to turn the tables on a painting of one of my colleagues called My Artist is a Butcher. Currently, we live in a period of transformation in which consciousness is becoming more and more tangible, even more present. Mankind aspires to this. It comes from all sides, starts everywhere. Sex, slaughter each other and themselves. Entire countries are ravaged, but undoubtedly, all this is part of a consciousness permeating matter. The essence of my work, and I become more and more aware of it, I feel it deeply, is a consciousness in matter. As I'm listening, I get the impression that the cluster enables you to understand matter and to bring it to consciousness. It is almost a biological approach. The biological cellular substance becomes human, thus spirit itself. Does the cluster play a dynamic and catalytic role between matter and consciousness, or is it, as architectural element, only a cable, a channel between matter and consciousness? Is your cluster a stable, fixed constituent, or does it play an active part? And then her reaction, active. For me, it is a means to make visible through images, through representations, through substance, the very idea and essence of consciousness in matter. Someone looking at a cluster in a painting may start, perhaps, through this very concrete and real component asking himself some questions, and perhaps even beginning to understand what exactly my cluster implies. It is an element of transmission. It is a first indication. It is an enormous work in progress. It is an enormous work in progress, which is far from finished. As it is, concrete, tangible, square on the outside and round in the inside, with its holes, its voids and fullnesses, is a cluster active. There are different levels. It plays an active role insofar as it has a function. It can be a bookstand too. It is part and parcel of a construction. It separates through, though allows passages, but does it transform? If it does, it breaks. Here we come to the paintings called Claustra Involue 1, but Claustra Involue 2 already applies an evolution. Today's mankind is like a claustra. Is it active? Is it conscious? The work is not carried out at the mental level, but in the very consciousness of the cell. There is still a lot to be done. I have the impression, and that's where the interviewer comes in again, I have the impression that the claustra is in fact your soul and your personal sensibility. You just said the claustra is the opening, the glance. Isn't it your own consciousness? When someone else is looking at your paintings, or even as mirror, you yourself are looking at one of your finished paintings. Isn't it Gap's emotions one is looking at via the claustra? Taking your example to its logical conclusion, it can be said it is an autoportrait. It is always the same when I'm asked, what is that? A mantra, a mandala, or what does it symbolize? Going back to reality as much as possible, I answer, no, it really is but a concrete block with some holes. I wish to stay as close as possible to reality. Whenever I look at one of your paintings, the emotion and sensibility through the claustra may be yours, as well as those of the spectator. Human sensibility has an universal character. It is more or less developed, but the soul, the spirit, depending on the words you choose, is a part of all human beings. That is, by the way, the difference with all other living matter. I'm not sure if I agree with that, because I think that all living matters have a soul, but it's interesting to see. I'm curious where this will go. That is, by the way, the difference with all the living matter. When I am looking at a yogi, I'm not looking at the equanimity, the interior harmony, the consciousness of reality of everyone else. Oh, I'm sorry, I will read this sentence out once again. When I am looking at the yogi, am I not looking at the equanimity, the interior harmony, the consciousness of reality of every one of us? One accesses reality through your work. I have the feeling that access to the sensibility in all of us comes from penetrating your personal sensibility, thus making your painting all the more touching. Claustra is an active intermediary of the biologically transformed matter, exactly as cells live and evolve, constantly shaping man's body. Be it a museum, a yogi, a wood floor underlying the hemiplegic character of human substance and its frustrations. Its fractures, when we look at your different paintings and your various objects, isn't it an insight into one's inner universe with a mirrored reflection? The color is steering. The direct sensibility of the eye with the color exists, but doesn't that come from the mirror of one's own consciousness? I would like to put it as follows. The unconsciousness becomes conscious through the prism of the claustra. That is the direction I'd like to follow in my work, not by transmitting the unconsciousness into consciousness, and not by working on the unconsciousness, but on the consciousness. Yes, indeed. I shut off my unconsciousness as when I'm listening to music. There is a direct and spontaneous emotion. One likes or dislikes a color. There exists a harmony of colors. On the surface, there is that sensibility to a note, to a color, but going a little further by really listening or serious looking, does this not reflect on oneself? Your paintings are very harmonious, nothing unsettling appear. Conceivably, your analysis of the soul could be perceived as superficial. As a matter of fact, you have arrived for yourself to a harmonious level which is apparent. Do you want to help the spectator or yourself when you are painting to obtain this harmony? Trouble, anxiety, anguish do not belong to human nature, but to its perverse results. The duration of an instant, the moment of a glance, interior peace nearly exists. No, not nearly, but truly. I don't know. If I always succeed, but I try to hold to that in my work, in myself, and by the medium I choose, painting with its shapes, its colors, what is now commonly called plastic arts or visual arts. When in your work, claustra and yogi come together with regards to interior strength and your approach to your personal sensibility and spirituality, they are your strongest paintings. With these two elements, you always use subtle colors as cameo blue or yellow. Claustra and yogi are the most smoothing paintings, and surely these in front of which I feel an internal and external serenity. The yogi, a physical strength as well as a harmonious physical position where all the corporal energies center in pursuit of internal peace, and the claustra, is that also for you an image of complete peace one perhaps encounters only in another supernatural life in relation with the body and with the claustra? These complementary elements lead to a condition depending on one's beliefs, known only in the life after death. I will check if I see, I'm probably already reading this for more than 20 minutes, but I think I will finish this reading off and then yeah, I think I will finish this reading off anyways. Yes, in connection with life here and now. That is why I work with the consciousness in matter. Matter is the very essence of the human body, of a claustra, of a grain or of sand. The claustra has a definite form, namely square, and man has a form which is human. But what is the definition and the limit of the form? When you are more and more supple in relation to the universal, the form is beyond the human body or the claustra. If I decide on a form through what is most concrete, precise as in a painting, but form and formless make one. In the song de l'évolution of matter, you may follow the evolution when you become more and more supple. It is the very opposite of brittle, even contrary to a claustra. The claustra is but a passage, perhaps, a means of arriving at consciousness. The transmitting to my eye, from my eye going beyond me by means of my hand, my brush, my claustra, is also the eye of the beholder. Though that very geometrical, clearly defined from perhaps questions arise consciousness-wise. Beyond that, form and formless are but one. The evolving nature of a claustra parallels the meaning of life and the raison d'être of mankind. Some very difficult terms that are being put here. Your work is very profound. It is very encouraging. It is another approach, perhaps atheistic. We can discuss at length on what is atheistic and what is not. But on earth, everything is life. That is life. The claustra carries in itself, as does everything else, its own essence. The essence of life, the terrestrial. Indeed, uniquely terrestrial. In all the universe, the Earth, such an infinitesimal part of the whole. To return to the claustrum, is it really a transmission part, or is it an active camera taking pictures of matter, which is, of course, evolutionary? There is no question of photographic processes because it is about painting. You spoke of photography. The answer is no. I am working on matter. I use the claustra as a means to illuminate the consciousness of matter, to go beyond and to be in the very essence. It also is the grain of sand mixed with my paint. As soon as matter, vibration of work, and consciousness come together, there is transformation. So as soon as matter, vibration of work, and consciousness come together, so it's matter, vibration of work, and consciousness come together, there is transformation. But it is true that it manifests into a geometrical form imagined by a human mind, thus in a way restricted and limited. It all depends of the level. All my paintings imply different levels. There always is the immediate level, embodying all the others, since an image can be transmitted just by a flash, whereas a text needs time to be read. With a composition in a painting, one can send, express, move globally, immediately, directly, and more sensitively, more strongly. Even if we live in a world where images are distorted in 1,000 ways, I work the way I do in order to give back through the consciousness of matter the power and strength a painting can bring to human matter, the body, the brains, the cells of the brains. Maybe it can trigger some electric waves, clashes which can transform into consciousness. Matter just piled through my efforts may lead to transformation. The claustra is but a small link. As painter, you choose some specific means of expressions. Do you think that you are participating in a transformation of matter? Evidently, I possess a capacity here. Through my work, I try to create impulses in that direction. Whatever activity and however modest, everyone is transforming and improving reality. Is it your daily task? It is your daily task. Can you elucidate yours? A prepared linen canvas stretched on the frame, oil colors, medium varnishes, spatulae, big and small brushes, all the tools and the materials flow together down their path in a surpassing manner, in a controlled manner, and becoming better every time will continue its path. So that was basically the text that I just read. And I see it's getting dark. I think we should end today with this, because I'm also getting hungry and I've had a full working day already. So I will switch off the live stream and I guess I see you tomorrow. So thank you for watching. Bye-bye. See you tomorrow.